Hello, my name is Shay Britton, and I will be talking about the sex education standards across the United States. I want to start off by telling you about an interaction I had with one of my 14-year-old students. To give you some background, I teach at a very rural school outside of Louisiana, where many of my students' only access to civilization is through the internet. Many of my students come from low-income backgrounds and one-parent households. Many of them haven't traveled outside of the state of Louisiana. I've learned quickly that many of them were exposed to sex at a very young age because there is very minimal parental supervision. One day, I was talking to one of my students. She was upset about her boyfriend and wanted someone to talk to. She was rattling on about how he's always pressuring her to do sexual things, but she doesn't want to end up pregnant like her older sister. We started talking about pregnancy, and I quickly learned that she had no idea how girls actually get pregnant. She knew that it happened from sex, but she had no idea how it was from one of her eggs being fertilized by sperm. She had no idea that her body released eggs once a month, and that was a time period that she would actually be able to get pregnant. She had no idea that she could keep track of those things so that she knew what days were safe to be sexually active and what days were not. The lack of her education on this topic made me interested to learn more about what type of sex education the students in Louisiana are receiving. When I approached the health teacher, whom is actually certified as a history teacher, he told me that by law they are forbidden to discuss the varying types of contraceptives, STD prevention, the definition and importance of consent, and what a healthy relationship should actually look like. They are only allowed to teach abstinence-based education. Coming from Pennsylvania, this was shocking to me because I grew up in a school district where we had the birds and the bees talk in 5th grade. Then in middle school, we had health class where we learned all about these different types of preventative ways of pregnancy, prevent STDs, and just sexual education in general. However, abstinence-based education is actually on the rise. In April of 2018, the Teen Pregnancy Prevention Program, which was created by Obama in 2010 to reduce teen pregnancy, came out saying that they were only going to provide funding to organizations promoting abstinence-based approaches. So why is this new policy worrisome? Well, according to the American Journal for Nursing, abstinence-only programs are associated with increased pregnancy and birth rates. Many people do not realize that sex education is more than just preventing teen pregnancy. It also relates to sexually transmitted diseases, HIV education, and dating violence. Sex education standards vary greatly across the country. While the federal government does provide funding to states and districts, it doesn't regulate these programs, which leaves states to configure curriculum and content on their own. According to a study from the National Institute of Health, only about half of adolescents receive school instruction about contraception before they first have sex. According to a report by the Guttmacher Institute in 2012, of the states that require some form of sex-related education, 2 require sex education only, 20 require sex education and HIV education, and 13 require HIV education only. This is comparative to the 27 states that require lessons that stress abstinence, and 18 states require instruction that teaches students to engage in sexual activity only within marriage. And when covering what a healthy relationship and consent/sexual assault looks like, those numbers even decrease. Only about 8 states in the country cover what consent or sexual assault looks like, while only 10 cover what a healthy relationship looks like. This means that the majority of U.S. public school students do not receive instruction through their state's sex education program on how to identify healthy and unhealthy relationship behaviors, which can have an extremely negative impact on them as they enter adulthood. Many may wonder why we should be worried about the fact that abstinence-only approaches are on the rise when we've had teen pregnancy decreasing over the last 10 years. Well, according to a report in 2016 by the CDC, teen pregnancy and birth rates are declining, but they're still much higher in the United States than they are in other industrialized countries. Also, racial, ethnic, and geographic disparities still persist. As of 2017, the teen pregnancy and birth rates of Hispanic and African American teenagers was more than 2 times higher than the rate of non-Hispanic white teens. Black high school students are also more likely to have had intercourse than white and Latino students, and more Black high school students and Latino students initiate sex before the age of 13 compared to white students. Since African Americans and Hispanics are more likely to go to failing schools, that means that they are getting less sex education than that of their white counterparts, meaning that is probably contributing to the fact that they have higher teen pregnancy birth rates. So why is it worrisome that students are not receiving an adequate sex education in school? Well, for one, this can obviously lead to higher teen pregnancy rates. According to the CDC, teen pregnancy is a significant contributor to whether or not girls will drop out of high school. Compared to women who do not give birth during their adolescent years, teen mothers are 40% less likely to receive a high school diploma by 22 years of age. Not only can teen pregnancy have a negative effect on the mother and the father of the child, but it can also have a negative effect on the child itself. The children of teenage mothers are more likely to face challenges in their lives as they grow up. Children of teen mothers tend to have lower school achievement, higher high school dropout rates, more serious health problems, be incarcerated at some time during their adolescent years, give birth as a teenager themselves, and face unemployment as a young adult. The second reason that it is important that students receive proper sex education in school is to prevent the spread of STDs. According to a report in 2015 by CDC, of those young adolescents who admitted to having intercourse in the last 3 months, 43% said they did not use a condom the last time they had sex. The last reason that it is important that students receive proper sex education in school is to prevent domestic violence and unhealthy relationships. It was reported that nearly 1 in 11 female teens experienced physical dating violence in the last year. 1 in 9 females in high school reported experiencing sexual dating violence in the last year. And 26% of women experienced intimate partner violence for the first time before the age of 18. In today's world, where most teens see what a relationship should be like through TV shows, movies, or the internet, it is more crucial than ever for schools to have a curriculum in place that demonstrates and teaches students what a healthy relationship should be like to prevent these statistics from rising any further. So, what needs to happen in order to address these problems? Well, first, there needs to be comprehensive, modernized legislation that is passed either on the federal level or in all 50 states that requires sex education to include instruction on healthy relationships, communication, intimacy, consent, and sexual assault prevention. As you can see in the map below, obviously that is not the case currently. The states that are in dark blue do require sex ed in public schools, and all classes must be comprehensive and accurate. However, as you can tell, not many states are dark blue. The light blue states don't require sex ed in public schools, but they do require that it be comprehensive and accurate when it is taught. If the state is green, that means that they have little to no legislation concerning sexual education. Light purple states don't require sex ed in public schools, but they do require that it focus on abstinence when it is taught. And finally, dark purple are states that require sex ed in public schools, but all classes must focus on abstinence. Not only should the legislation be more comprehensive in nature to include all the areas of sex education, but it should focus more on helping students incorporate this information into their everyday lives. While being able to pass a test is usually the main focus in school, when it comes to sex education, that is not going to help them develop a deep understanding and comprehension for the material. The curriculum should focus more on incorporating strategies such as role-playing activities, inviting guest speakers who have been in that situation and made the wrong decision, using more realistic videos, using prepared activities that demonstrate and allow students to practice how to make healthy and safe decisions. This way, students are less focused on trying to pass a test and retain the knowledge for the short run, but are more focused on trying to figure out how to incorporate this newly learned knowledge into their everyday lives. 3 states that could be looked to as model examples for what sex education should look like in public schools are California, New Jersey, and Oregon. All 3 states require educators to use materials that are medically accurate and include instructions related to healthy relationships and consent. So perhaps, not surprisingly, California, Oregon, and New Jersey have lower teen pregnancy rates than the national average by 3, 4, and 11% respectively. In summary, as of April 2018, the U.S. Department of Health will be shifting towards an abstinence-only approach, which can only have a negative effect on students across the United States. This means that less students will receive sexual education health that covers dating violence, STD prevention, pregnancy prevention, and HIV and AIDS education. With teen pregnancy rates in the United States still remaining higher than any other industrialized country, this can only mean that teen pregnancy and STD rates will increase. The federal government must take a stand. They must pass legislation that makes it so that states have to enforce comprehensive sex education, which means that it covers more than just pregnancy prevention. Students need to have a curriculum and at least a year-long class that covers pregnancy prevention, dating violence, so what consent looks like and what a healthy relationship looks like, STDs, health and prevention, and about AIDS and HIV. If this is not done, students will continue to be neglected in almost half the states in the United States, and pregnancy rates will, as a result, increase.